Communities are still recovering from that devastation caused by the federal occupation and the blatant trampling of the rights we as Americans hold dear. We cannot send this rogue and unaccountable agency another cent.
You'll hear my colleagues, no doubt, couldn't believe my ears. They called our law enforcement agents who risked their lives to keep us safe. Their families pray and wait for their mom or dad to come home, wondering if something goes wrong and the bad guys win that day and they never see their family member again. And yet, my Democrat colleague repeatedly referred to our honorable ICE and CBP agents as masked thugs.
Before we get started, smash that like button and subscribe to Capital Truthline, because the mainstream media will never show you moments like this honestly. Today, Ilhan Omar tried to paint ICE agents as villains, but Congressman Jody Arrington stepped up and absolutely dismantled the narrative in front of the entire country. And what happened next exposed exactly why the border crisis became such a disaster in the first place.
More incomprehensible, considering it comes after Trump and congressional Republicans already created an $85 billion slush fund for ICE during the last budget reconciliation process. In my district, ICE has used the money to terrorize Minnesotans, particularly our Black and brown communities, through Operation Metro Surge. We watched in horror as ICE agents murdered our neighbors, Renee Good and Alex Brady, in broad daylight. We witnessed our neighbors being snatched off the street, pulled from their homes and cars without a warrant. We saw dozens of children ripped away from their families, friends, and schools, shipped to detention centers out of state. Our communities are still recovering from that devastation caused by the federal occupation and the blatant trampling of the rights we as Americans hold dear. We cannot send this rogue and unaccountable agency another cent.
You'll hear my colleagues, no doubt, say, if we could just agree on some common sense reforms, we would have opened up the Department of Homeland Security. We would have been glad to work with you. But let's think about these quote unquote common sense reforms. To require this administration to get a judicial warrant to expel criminal aliens from our country. There is not a Democrat or Republican former commander-in-chief that would ever find that acceptable. Because in fact, these criminal aliens have had their day in immigration court, and they have their orders to be expelled because they are not here with cause. They are here with threat to my family and to my community and to my great state of Texas and to this beloved country of ours, and it's unacceptable. But they would effectively stop all deportations. But we had an election after 4 years of lawlessness and chaos at the southern border, crime, criminals, and all kinds of criminal elements and drugs that killed more people than the entire Vietnam War in 1 year. And this president was elected to restore law and order, rule of law in this great civil society of ours. It's been an embarrassment for those 4 years, and he's done it, and that's what the people sent us here to do. That's the mandate they gave us, along with unified Republican leadership. But there's been one wall of obstruction after another for this president and this administration. And that's one example of their ridiculous, absurd, unserious demands. The other one is, and I heard this at the Rules Committee, my friend, and I couldn't believe my ears. They called our law enforcement agents who risked their lives to keep us safe. Their families pray and wait for their mom or dad to come home, wondering if something goes wrong and the bad guys win that day and they never see their family member again. And yet, my Democrat colleague repeatedly referred to our honorable ICE and CBP agents as masked thugs. when evil is called good and good is called evil. You remember that quote? You remember that admonition? These are the days. Mr. Speaker, we've given 16 chances and all opportunities to vote to turn this government of the people back on and support our ICE and CBP agents, to protect our ports by funding our guardsmen, to protect the CISA agents, to protect our critical infrastructure while cyber attacks are on the rise, and to resource our FEMA agency to be ready to respond to our citizens in a natural disaster. 16 times they said no. No. And here we are. Demasking our agents, calling them masked thugs. 8,000% increase, Mr. Speaker, in death threats to these gentlemen and gentlelady who wear the badge, who wear the uniform, who protect the thin blue line. 1,300% increase in assaults. 3,200% increase in vehicular assaults. We know who they are. We have made great effort to identify each agent so they would be held accountable if they did anything illegal or inappropriate. But we have cartel members who have bounties of tens of thousands of dollars on their heads. And we have masked, leftist, radical, violent folks who are assaulting them in the streets while they're trying to do their dangerous job. You want to know why we're here, Mr. Speaker? You want to know why we're here, American people? That's why we're here.
This was one of the clearest political contrasts you will ever see. On one side, you had Ilhan Omar attacking ICE, accusing federal agents of terrorizing communities and demanding that Congress stop funding immigration enforcement. On the other side, you had Jody Arrington defending the men and women risking their lives every single day to stop cartel operations, drug trafficking, violent criminals, and illegal crossings pouring into the United States. And Arrington did not sound like a politician reading talking points. He sounded angry. He sounded frustrated. And honestly, he sounded like someone who has watched the consequences of open border policies hit real communities in real time. Arrington reminded Congress that the American people already voted on this issue. After years of chaos at the southern border, millions of voters wanted law and order restored. They wanted deportations enforced. They wanted criminal illegal aliens removed, and they wanted border security taken seriously again. But according to Arrington, Democrats continue throwing obstacle after obstacle in the way, while simultaneously attacking the very agents tasked with protecting the country. One of the strongest moments came when he addressed Democrats referring to ICE and CBP agents as masked thugs. You could hear the emotion in his voice. He talked about agents leaving home every day not knowing whether they'll make it back alive, families waiting for phone calls, agents facing growing threats from cartels. And according to the numbers Arrington cited, the threats are exploding. Death threats against agents rising, assaults increasing, violence against law enforcement escalating. And yet, instead of backing the agents protecting the border, Democrats are still trying to undermine them politically. That was the core of Arrington's argument. And whether people agree with every detail or not, there's no denying the frustration many Americans feel after years of border chaos. Meanwhile, Omar framed ICE operations as federal overreach and accused immigration enforcement of harming communities. But critics argue that this position ignores the bigger issue. The United States cannot function as a sovereign nation if immigration laws are optional. That is the debate now dividing Washington, and it is becoming more intense by the day. Because this isn't just about politics anymore. This is about fentanyl, human trafficking, cartel operations, public safety, and whether the federal government is willing to enforce the laws already on the books. Arrington also pointed directly at the hypocrisy he sees from Democrats demanding restrictions on ICE while simultaneously expecting Americans to trust the government to maintain order. His message was simple. If you weaken immigration enforcement, criminals exploit the system. And many Americans watching this hearing probably agreed with him, especially after years of headlines involving border encounters, migrant surges, and cartel activity expanding across the southern border. This is why the political stakes are getting so high, because border security is no longer just another policy debate. For millions of voters, it has become a symbol of whether America still has control over its own laws and institutions. And moments like this hearing only pour gasoline on the fire. The tension inside Congress is boiling over, the anger from voters is growing, and politicians on both sides know the 2026 elections could become a referendum on immigration and public safety. One thing is certain, Jody Arrington was not backing down, and Ilhan Omar was not expecting this level of pushback. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to Capitol Truthline, and tell me in the comments, should Congress increase ICE funding or cut it? I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay informed, stay loud, and stay free.